Welcome, you're watching Kaleidoscope Srilanka Live News Capsule. With several years of turbulence in our rearview mirror, Sri Lanka marches forward. We've seen a real estate boom with a projected CAGR of 7.5% from 2023 to 2028. The chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange stated recently that he is hopeful the stock market will perform well for 2024 as economic conditions continue to improve. The million-dollar question is, do we invest or do we stay away? To give us her take is Thinushka Soysa, who has years of experience in fund management, investment, private equity and research and is currently an investment consultant and non-executive director at MPower Capital Securities. So with elections in the offing, what is the investment climate in Sri Lanka like? You know, the good, bad and the ugly.
Sri Lanka is at an interesting point in time, very pivotal in fact. And we've been through a terrible time over the last couple of years. Since 2018, we've had the constitutional crisis, and it's just been one crisis back to back after that. The silver lining has been, over the last 2 years, we were able to effect policy changes that should have been effected over the last 2 or 3 decades. So that, I believe, is giving us a good foundation to progress from here if so we choose. Now, I understand that there's a lot of anxiety about the sort of election candidates that we have coming up. We don't have a lot of room to change what has been done so far. And because there is so little fiscal room to change, whichever candidate comes in, election rhetoric aside, is going to, I hope, will make reasonable choices for the country.
How do investors perceive Sri Lanka, from traditional and non-traditional investments?
Sri Lanka has not progressed in terms of investment choices over the last few decades again. Purely because I think our interest rate cycles were so high that there was no necessity to have other investment choices. So we've had the traditional investments such as real estate, of course, gold, and then the spectrum of bank and finance investments. But beyond that, what is accessible to the general public has honestly not gone beyond that. Now, I think that is definitely going to change if this investment climate persists in terms of, inflation is low, interest rates are at reasonable levels. Going forward, for investment and growth to happen, interest rates should move down a little bit more. And at that point in time, investors are going to look for yield. And at that point, we're going to see a lot more investment products coming out. But right now, I think spectrum of investments is land, apartments, fixed deposits at various institutions, and perhaps gold. And we did see currency being an investment choice also the last few years.
What risks are we looking at then?
Our safest investment was technically government securities, and over the last 2 years, that didn't turn out to be the case. That actually turned out to have probably the most risk. But that being set aside, you have your spectrum of investments where you go from low risk to high risk, and then, of course, cash and cash equivalents, government securities are your lowest risk. You don't have to think too much. You're going to get your money back and you have a decent yield, hopefully to beat inflation. And then you have your middle risk categories like land and then the various FDs. So what you have to remember is you have to look for adequate return for the risk that you're taking. I know higher interest rates are always good and you're always happy to get it, but you have to understand that if an institution is offering you a higher interest rate, that it is probably because there is a higher risk associated with that. So you have to look at there is no one size fits all, unfortunately. So you have to look at your own risk appetite. So that would include, of course, your risk spectrum, your liquidity needs, and whatever you have coming and going, whatever is happening in your life, essentially. So based on those, you would have a mix of all of these investments.
What's your investment outlook like in the short to medium term?
Short term is definitely going to be quite volatile because of election uncertainty and people are just waiting to see what happens. But if you look at the economic data that's coming out in terms of inflation, growth, interest rates and whatnot, things are improving slowly. And with the sort of changes we've made to, the tax changes, even the SOE reforms, those are very pivotal reforms which we haven't seen in, I think, in our lifetime. So given those changes, and if that continue to come through, I think Sri Lanka is on a very, very good platform to, leapfrog over the next few decades.
Did you know that Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn? And remember to subscribe, follow and like us for more.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Sri Lanka Life.